Small changes over time multiply and produce a completely different outcome. Yeah. So never think that any of your listeners, never think that even a small change, if that's all you can do, over time it will have a compounding effect and it will make a difference. And that's
We've
really
been
important.
waiting to interview Susie for over a year, I think.
Yes.
And with her being in part of the time in London, part of the time in France, a big time difference. So it's been a little challenging to try to get the timing. And for us, it was 5
5 a.m.
a.m. And so we thought it might be helpful to do a little recap, especially because there was just so many amazing things that she talked about. And I just thought if you wouldn't mind, Marie, just kind of taking us through some of the points from the medical side,
Absolutely.
before we share the interview.
Yeah, and I think that would be so helpful for our listeners. So, something to keep in mind is that in addition to being an herbalist and a holistic healer, Susie is also a functional medicine practitioner and a health coach, which is such an amazing combination. So, she speaks to all the different modalities that she's accumulated over time. But functional medicine is something that's not well understood, especially by mainstream medicine here in the U.S. It's definitely growing in popularity, and so more people than ever understand what it is. But there's so many people that don't understand. So functional medicine is really it's a root cause approach to looking at symptoms. So often a healthcare practitioner might refer to your child as this is my patient with cerebral palsy, or this is my patient who has, this is my chronic pain patient. But when you're looking from a functional medicine perspective, we are all people. Your children are your children. And the symptoms that they have, that is just a manifestation of the body not having balance in some way, shape, or form. And that balance, there's always a root cause to that imbalance. So with cerebral palsy, the root cause has to do with Damien's birth story and what happened to him, even before he was born. And then what happened to him in those first few months, where for most children who go full term, their growth and development occurs in a very safe space, the mom's womb. For Damien, he was born at just 2 pounds, so he had so much more growing to do. But that growth was in a NICU,
Right. And then
where
also interrupted when he was born, losing the oxygen, being resuscitated twice.
yes. So
Right.
that's important. And often clinicians, especially, or pediatricians are amazing, but they don't always reflect on that story. So a functional medicine practitioner will ask about, the entire birth story from the 9 months before people were supposed to be born, what happened in the first few days after they were born, and then everything leading up to when they're actually seeing you. So, an interview with a functional medicine clinician, that first interview could be an hour and a half. And it may involve lots and lots of paperwork and sharing information that to most people might seem insignificant, but it is such a big piece of the functional medicine practitioner peeling back the layers of the onion to identify what are the contributing factors to the symptoms that are causing dis-ease. So
Right.
as opposed to looking at this is a disease, we look at things from the lens of dis, meaning bad or poor, ease, because our bodies are meant to be at ease.
Right.
So when they're not, then we have symptoms, and the symptoms can be many.
Right.
And so Susie's approach is to really look at those underlying conditions and then work with the the person or their family, such as mom or dad,
Right.
to try and find balance and to take away things that are toxic or that are not helping move people forward. And then also balance out to maybe it might include supplements, it might include herbs, it might include, other remedies. And then looking to see how we can help people heal. And then, something that Susie had said, which was really so profound, is that we don't want to reduce a child to the pathology.
Right.
Another thing that we wanted to really touch on is that, Susie is in Europe, and being that she is in Europe, she has access to things that we may not have here in the US, different herbs or supplements, remedies. And then often people associate herbal remedies or herbal supplements with being very insignificant. And, people often don't even mention herbs or supplements to their pediatrician or their primary care practitioner. And what I think is so important to remember is that herbs are medicine and there is the potential that they could interact with other medications if people are on medications. And they can have some side effects, although not as many typically as mainstream medications, because the medications that are prescribed a pharmaceutical looks to target one specific symptom. So if you're on, say, baclofen looks to target the symptom of spasticity. And in doing that, it either interrupts a natural pathway or it interrupts something that's happening in the body. Whereas an herbal supplement is meant to get to the root cause. So often we find that there may be less side effects with something that's an herbal remedy, but it also impacts the entire body. But it comes from a more foundational approach, but there's still interactions. So even something as simple as grapefruit juice can interact with medications. Cranberry juice can interact with medications. St. John's wort, which is, commonly used for people who have sadness and depression, is used to elevate mood. So whenever you're looking or exploring any kind of herbal supplement, it's really important to make sure that you check that there's no interaction with any medications that you're currently on.
So St. John's wort helps with mood?
Yes,
Does
yes.
it help when you're really tired, Marie, and make you feel?
So what that is, I know when you're dealing with a young child and you're running all over the place,
Right.
I don't think that you need St. John's wort because you are one of the most up and positive people. So when we say mood, so there's a wide spectrum of mood. So often it's used with sadness, or in the mainstream medicine, it could be viewed as depression. However, from a holistic point of view, we don't ever diagnose, treat, or say that these holistic interventions cure, but we look to rebalance. So St. John's wort can be used as part of a rebalancing of the body to help with some of the root causes of depression or sadness.
That's really good to know.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that, if you're considering using herbal supplements, anything more than like simple aromatherapy, as
Right.
Susie will talk to a few drops of lavender on a tissue next to the baby to help them calm. Right. So that's a very general use of aromatherapy or of herbal supplements. But if you're interested in exploring more intense use of supplements, we would always recommend either speaking with an herbalist who has extensive education. Herbal medicine practitioners actually can have a 4-year degree in
Yes.
herbalism. because it is so complex. And then I would always urge people that when they're considering something, even holistic or mainstream medicine, right, to go to, a valid resource. So PubMed, which is accessible by anyone. So if you go into Google and you type PubMed, it
Okay.
will bring you to a website where you can search and you can say aromatherapy and CP, herbal medicine and CP, or whatever the symptom might be. And you will be provided, most of the articles are free. Some you maybe get the abstract, which is like a summary of the article,
Okay.
but you can actually do your own research. And I would absolutely urge all of our listeners that as you're listening to any of the podcasts or, videos that we're producing, as well as the information that you're getting from your pediatrician or your primary care provider, do a PubMed search or Google Scholar. That's another good resource. And you can see research that has been done on the majority of these interventions, and then you can make an informed decision. So
Right.
even if you hear something on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook that seems like, oh, this might be a really good idea, know the literature and the research that has gone into why someone is making that recommendation. And so we just wanted to pre-talk the interview with Susie, just to give you all, a brief understanding of some of the things that we talked about. Also, to make sure that, we emphasize our disclaimer that we're not intending to treat, cure, or prevent disease, but we're really looking to help people balance their body and to look at what their goals are and to make sure that people are choosing the path that's right for them and to know what's available. So know your resources, know how to validate your resources, and then, making sure that you do consult with people that have an understanding of the holistic intervention that you're seeking to maybe implement for your child.
Incredible story of how we met, Susie,
Mhm.
and how lucky I was to be able to meet you. Your husband is an actor and a writer and creator, and we were at a film festival in Los Angeles several years ago. And we met there, and then fast forward about a year later to discover that his wife is an amazing um, holistic healer and an herbalist, and have studied all over the world to be able to do what you do. And if you can just kind of introduce yourself, I'm sure you can do it better than me. But share, how did you get into this work?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jen. And hi, Marie.
Ah,
And we had some fun times, didn't we? Because what you should add is that because you and John, my other half, you started an amazing project, you actually all also came over to France and you did some amazing filming. And this is when I actually managed to meet Damien in person, which was lovely.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that was
that was
great.
an amazing
That
time.
was an amazing time, wasn't it? Yeah, exactly. So it was beautiful. Yeah. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the introduction. And so how did I get into this? From a holistic health perspective, I'm primarily really, I started off as a medical herbalist, which is a thing that what we call ourselves in England. And I was just really curious and in love with plants and herbs and sort of how they could help us to really balance the system, I guess. And I love nature and I love animals and I'm very drawn to that kind of medicine. So I studied herbal medicine at Westminster University, and that's a 3.5 year long course. And then I went on to actually teach there for over 10 years. And in the meantime, I set up my practice and I was working with people and I added lots of modalities, like you said, Jen. So I went off to Belize and I did some beautiful abdominal therapy with Rosita Vigo, who's a very beloved teacher of mine, and learning more about integrative health from a more Mayan perspective, which was fascinating. And then whenever a patient came in a way, I would, and if I got stuck, I would then look for another solution. I would look for something else. That's kind of very much who I am. So I'm always thinking, okay, well, what else can I do? What else can I add? So then I added, so I had the abdominal therapy, I did craniosacral therapy, I did aromatherapy in France, which was amazing. And then I added a lot of functional medicine as well. So I kind of moved away from the natural way of doing things more to the biochemistry and became a bit geeky with chemistry and so on, which was really interesting. And I know, Marie, that's your love as well.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, exactly. So functional medicine is great because it really helps you to break down things at a much greater detail and get a much better understanding of what might be going on in the presenting complaint, as we call it, of that particular person. So with children, it's interesting because children have so much vital force and capacity and healing potential in them. So often less is a lot more. That's what I've often noticed with children. So it's almost like you just give a gentle nudge. You just kind of present what they need for the terrain to be at optimum level, and then everything else. The body is designed to thrive, really, especially at this stage, at any stage, to be honest. But it just changes a little bit as we get older. So it's really interesting when working with children because you almost don't need very much, but you just need to kind of, set a slightly different course. And then if you think about, I love this analogy always because, often we think we need to do huge things and lots and big changes and actually small changes over time multiply and produce a completely different outcome. Yeah. So never think that any of your listeners, never think that even a small change, if that's all you can do, over time it will have a compounding effect and it will make a difference. And that's really encouraging, because sometimes it can feel really overwhelming, especially if you're struggling already, you have a child with more needs and higher demands, and it can be, yeah, very disheartening sometimes as well, can't it? But just trust, give it time, let the compounding effect of the things that you're doing work, and just, yeah, kind of go into that space. And from my perspective, so what we usually do when I have a patient coming in, or when we started working with Damien, really, it's about looking at the whole picture. So it's really important never just to reduce the child to a pathology or to a presenting complaint or something. I think it's really, really key just to see who is this child, what has happened. So we look at the birth, we look at the preconception, nutrition, we look at things like obviously any medication, any illnesses during pregnancy, after birth, what was the birth like itself. Birth is so important. It's become very medicalized. I know it's much worse in the States because of various reasons, isn't it? But it's a very, very important process actually. Whenever possible, of course, it's very helpful if children can go through the natural birth process for various reasons. And one of them is really the inoculation with the favorable microbes that they get through the vaginal canal. So sometimes when you have babies that are born through cesarean, they initially don't have that beneficial bacteria that's kind of populating the gut for straight away. So in some countries, they now started to doing these, it's like a vaginal swab, for example. So if you know that you're going to have a cesarean, or then you can actually ask the midwife sometimes to do a bit of a swab, and then they put it on the cheek of the baby. And that will actually help to get some inoculation. You would usually, obviously, you would test it on any infections, but you would do that anyway. And then it's generally safe. It's not a protocol yet, but a lot of the midwives that I work with, they really recommend it. And certainly there's a bit of research. If you look on PubMed, um, there's some research showing already that there are benefits when it comes to brain development, so cognitive development, when you actually compare to children who had C-sections where they didn't do inoculations. So,
That is fascinating. And
yeah.
because there's now so much research and interest in the gut microbiome and, the concept that our gut is our other brain, right?
Hmm.
So that so
Yeah.
many of our neurotransmitters are created by those beneficial bacteria in the gut, and then those influence the brain. So that is
Yeah.
fascinating. And I also love how, the concept of caring for the whole person, and that children are not just the manifestation of their symptoms,
Yeah.
that these are the symptoms that children have are really, um, you know, the manifestate the are usually a deficit and something is off balance. And
Mm.
so just the idea of being able to put things back into balance is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because obviously, when we talk about the cerebral palsy, it's specifically, there are very specific issues that come with that, but it's very diverse as well, isn't it? Because it can affect every part of that child and every part of the adult later on. And but you can still do a lot. It's not deterministic, as we saw with Damien as well. I mean, there's so much potential out there because, one of the things that also, when you look at what you were saying about the gut microbiome, Marie, it's really fascinating because we're learning now, okay, so it's the gut microbiome that determines a lot and produces neurotransmitters. And also, interestingly, and we'll talk about nutritional deficiencies, but magnesium, for example, is one of the key things that any children or adults, everybody, in fact, is a magnesium deficient, but especially for children with cerebral palsy, having the right magnesium levels on a tissue level, this is important, is really key. Now, what's interesting is that if you have a non-favorable favorable gut microbiome, you will actually hinder your absorption of magnesium. So it's so key that you have the right gut microbiome. And that can be achieved through sort of different things. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But I think it's just that terrain, yeah. So and then we have the gut microbiome. We have a microbiome on the skin. We have a gut microbiome in the mouth. We have a microbiome in the breast tissue, even. I mean, this is not so relevant for this particular podcast, but I want to mention it anyway because they've actually done a lot of really interesting research now, which shows that there's a certain type of microbiome in the breast tissue which makes you more prone to breast cancer, right? So we've got these bacterial clusters and microbes, and not just bacteria, viruses, everything everywhere, and they are basically determining a lot of a lot of the health in the organism, much more so than we thought. So we're kind of not really an organism, are we? We're like a cluster. We're like a community of trillions of cells and trillions of microbiota almost, yeah. So so that's really key. So we need to think about that whenever we have a medical intervention. It will have an impact on the microbiome on some way or another. So it's not to say, as we all know, it's absolutely essential when it's essential, but it's very important not to overuse it. And because of the delicate balance really that we can
Yes.
lose. Yeah.
I
So
know, for several parents like me who don't have a medical background, how do you sort of break down what your recommendations are for that child?
yeah. So I think and if we think about what we did with Damien, because you're right, because you were a very good mum of a patient. You were very compliant as well, which is great. But we also tried to make it simple, didn't we? Because you also said just realistically, there's only so much I can do, which is of course is completely natural. So how we do it is really I always like to start with the diet because I think diet is the best thing, and that's also something that you're going to give them every day, that they're going to be exposed to, and that has the biggest impact long term. That's the biggest compounding kind of change that you can add. So really trying to work with the parents as well, and seeing what's possible for them and what they feel comfortable with. So like with you, we looked at what does he already like, what does he already eat, right? And then we just sort of tried to add things. And one really important thing we discussed as well, Jen, is fiber, isn't it? Because, we talked about the microbiome and how important that is. And we know that I was looking up some stats about the kind of American diet, which is even kind of more extreme than in Europe still, but we're heading that way too. So it's not that different anymore. So for an adult, you should consume about a minimum of 30 grams of fiber a day, right? And the average American consumes 10, right? So that's quite impressive. So with children, it's often even worse. They because can become very difficult eaters sometimes, can't they? Yeah, they become
Yes.
so, and it's really, and especially when they have like with Damien as well, because you were so worried because he was not putting on weight, so it's really hard. And then you get this advice. You got a lot of advice about dairy, didn't you? Um,
Yes.
yeah, and I mean that's a big one for me. So my advice, and I'm just saying what I advise and what I see works, is to actually not have children on dairy. Um, if I don't find that that's the best way to help them to gain weight, I actually find that a lot of children really react to dairy, and it's a problem more than anything else. So the reflux, like with Damien, he was getting lots of reflux and things like that. And I do really find that that's a very common symptom when children eat dairy. A lot of children really don't tolerate dairy. You can sometimes get away with a bit of goats and sheep, but you'll do better off from just to kind of replace it with something else. Yeah, because there's that whole thing about calcium, and actually you can get really good calcium in lots of different ways, which doesn't have that high allergy potential or reactivity potential. So that's generally what I say. If we can really change the dairy over to something else. But we're very conscious of, calcium and other intakes, like we discussed with Damien as well. And it was lovely, wasn't it? Because you managed to change the diet, did a few changes with some herbs and so on, and then he really started to put on weight quite nicely, didn't he?
Yes, and he was also having the reflux just from the tension in the body and the high tone, where
Mm.
he was just throwing up almost every single feeding. And I should say we were also later on, even when that calmed down, you gave us some ideas to calm down his system, and that helped a lot. And then he was able to take in more food, and even when he had to gain more weight, they sent us to a nutritionist, and that's when they told us an actual list from the American nutritionist, which included ice cream,
Yeah,
cake,
yeah,
all of these things that were just like
yeah,
Carnation Instant Breakfast was a recommendation. And this is from a hospital, a
yeah.
very respected hospital. So I'm so grateful to have you. Right now, you're in France, and just to be able to meet with you on Zoom was
Mm.
really incredible. And yes, he is now 42 pounds, which is amazing.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's so
Quite
brilliant.
heavy to carry.
Yes. So thanks a lot. No.
Yeah, thanks a lot for my backache. That's so wonderful, isn't it? Yeah, I think it concerns me, and I know I've spoken to some dietitians sometimes, and it's just a different mindset, and I don't want to sort of put them down or anything else. I'm just saying about what I see and what I advise and what works for me. And I don't find that for me, it's not about empty calories, it's about dense calories that are filled with nutrients. Every single bite that a child like Damien has to process, or, any child that's having more difficulty, needs to be full with everything that they need, not just calories. Because the calories, yes, they are important, but actually, to be honest, if you're eating a lot of these foods, then the gut microbiome changes also in a way that is not favorable, and then you can't absorb a lot of these nutrients. And that's the problem,
Yeah.
So your vitamin K is dependent, vitamin B is dependent on a gut microbiome, magnesium. I mean, pretty much every single nutrient. Yes, it's absorbed in the small intestine, but the availability and accessibility is determined by the gut bacteria. So if you're feeding a lot of sugar, you're feeding other things, then that will have a negative impact. And then you don't get that improvement. Sometimes they might put on a bit of weight, but they don't get better overall. They still have digestive problems and then again what you were saying, Marie, about the neurotransmitters and those kind of things, that's so important because especially if you have a child with cerebral palsy, you've got this, the brain is has been damaged. And so anything that we can do to help to repair the brain, optimize, increasing the neurotransmitters, all of those things. And like you said, Jen, about that rigidity, it's so important. They need so many more nutrients, not less.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really key, that they need a lot more.
I'm also fascinated by how you brought up the birth story because I think oftentimes that's missed, and we spoke about that in another episode, right, Marie?
Yes.
Just about how the trauma of your birth and you even said while in the womb as well, and how that affects the child. And I think that's so often missed in our system. They see the child as they are with the disability, but we're
Mm,
not going back and saying, there are ways to heal those things.
mm,
And I find that fascinating, obviously, because Damien had a very challenging birth story. So can
mm,
you talk about some of the ways you've been able to help clients with that as
mhm.
well?
Yeah, with the trauma more, you mean, or more
Yeah,
that?
the trauma w when they're born, breach, or in Damien's case where he was resuscitated twice. He was born very early, so um, a lot of children with cerebral palsy were born prematurely as well. Damien also had drug exposure, so his case was a little um,
Mhm.
more complex. But it's just very reassuring to know that there's hope, because we often hear that, oh, with a story like this, this is what you're going to get. Don't expect too much. And it really hasn't been that way. I mean, he's
Yeah,
just really thriving.
yeah, exactly. You're so right. You never accept that there's nothing you can do, basically, because there's always so much you can do. So you work on lots of different levels. So we need to repopulate the gut microbiome in a good way. So that can be done in different ways. So if the women are able to breastfeed, or if they're not, then you can add other things. You look at a specific formula milks, and usually I would go for a hypoallergenic one, which doesn't really have a lot of casein in it, which is the milk protein. You could just start to use craniosacral therapy, for example. That can be really helpful. Osteopathy, and I know you took him to quite a few of those. That really makes a big difference. And the beauty is, because I've seen it, I've done it. I don't do it so much anymore these days, but working with the craniosacral with babies is just amazing because they're just a bundle of energy. And the body wants to, like I was saying earlier, it wants to thrive, it wants to expand generally, but it might have, you can feel the tightnesses, the tensions, the trauma. And so you can work with that quite nicely with the craniosacral. From a gut microbiome perspective, you can add really good, there's some good baby probiotics that you can add. You can also give them enzymes, for example, because often these babies, they're not, especially when they're born prematurely, a lot of the organs haven't quite really developed enough. So they're kind of really behind, even though they are born. But actually, you've got to think that they're actually often, they wouldn't even be born yet. And so it takes a lot longer for them really to catch up sometimes. And I think enzyme deficiency is a big problem that they often have. So we often add, we didn't have to do it with Damien, I don't think, but often you might want to add some lactase or something. So these are enzymes which are helping them to break down
Right.
some of the products in and so the the some of the carbohydrates and so on in the milk, for example. That can really help. Um, and then we can use herbs even at the beginning. We just need to do it, at a really small level because they don't need very much. So a little bit of fennel for the bloating, a little bit of essential oils, not on the baby, but just put a few drops of lavender, for example, on a tissue and put it next to them in the room. Yeah, just to regulate their nervous system is really nice. You can do quite early on, especially for the nervous system, you can do nice massage oils. We did that, didn't we? We did the massage oils. And what I like using is I tend to just use olive oil actually because I find it's the nicest one for the skin. But you can use other oils as well. And then just add a bit of geranium essential oil, which is really good for the nervous system, and lavender. That's what we did with Damien, wasn't it? Those two.
Yes.
They're really nice. So you've got a relaxing effect and you've got a nervous system building a regenerative effect. So and if you're nervous about putting it on the baby as such, you could just put it on their feet a little bit. That's really nice because it sort of absorbs, or you can do very diluted. So, we're talking about 50 mils of oil and 1 drop of each of the essential oils. So it's very, very diluted. It's very safe. Yeah. And then you could just rub it on the belly a little bit. Um, and they also like it, when you turn them around and you do a little bit on the sacrum and that sort of around the back. They love that. And the bum usually, right? It's quite nice. It's been relaxing, but especially when they have a lot of tension in their holding, right? We're
Yes.
kind of massaging the hip area and so on a little bit. It just kind of relaxes, takes that tension off. So that's a really nice simple thing, and it helps you to bond. It helps them to produce lots of oxytocin, which is essential for healing because of the touch. So that's a really nice simple thing before we even talking about any kind of fancy ingesting anything or something. So that's what I like to start with at the very beginning. And I do use flower remedies as well because I think they're really beautiful. We didn't use them actually, did we? But sometimes I use flower remedies. So I would use this sort of rescue remedy type. You can get a non-alcoholic version. And so you could put a little bit on your finger, and then the babies can lick it off, for example.
Oh,
And you can also use it topically, so that's quite nice. But it's energy medicine, flower remedies. So it's vibrational medicine. So not everybody believes in it. I find it quite helpful. I like it. I like it a lot. And again, babies are so receptive. And also with them, they're not going to pretend. It either works for them or it doesn't work for them. Yeah. So you can try it. If it doesn't do anything, then just forget about it. Yeah. So that's quite easy, really. So we'll start with that. And then when they get older, really what we're doing is we're thinking about supporting all the systems that might need support. So often it's lungs. Yeah. Could
mm,
be the lungs, it could be the heart, it could be, different organs that might be affected. Lungs are often a problem, and that was with Damien as well,
yes.
isn't it? Really always. So why? Because of the tension, because of the swallowing. Sometimes it goes down the wrong way. There's all sorts of reasons why with cerebral palsy you can get these lung conditions as well. So it's really important to work on the lungs always kind of almost in a preventative way. So you can do like get a little nebulizer,
Yes.
which you have, I know. Right?
Yes. We
Yeah.
started doing it every time he gets any sort of virus or anything like that, the nebulizer, and you recommended a little bit of colloquial silver,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's
and
right.
that helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The colloidal silver is quite controversial in the States, I gather, isn't it? But so it's like with anything, it's the dosage that's important. Yeah. So if you
Right.
add a couple drops of colloidal silver, 1 drop of colloidal silver in a nebulizer, so we're talking about a drop, yes,
Yeah.
then that's completely safe. You're not going to overload a system, and you're not going to have any silver kind of toxicity or anything like that. Yeah. It's
Right.
almost a homeopathic dose, but it still seems to help the tissue. Um, What? Because we talked about this, because you said to me, I can't get it. I'm like, I couldn't understand why. And then I looked it up and I saw, okay, there's this controversy, which I was not aware of.
But we
Um,
can get baclofen and,
yeah,
everything else.
that's right. That's right. So you really, I'm not concerned. I've never seen any problems with a sensible dose, right?
Of
Sensible dose
course.
is absolutely, absolutely safe and really helps. Yeah, it's very, very helpful.
And I will
So
say some of the things you recommended are sweet potatoes
yeah,
and
that's right. Very
very safe.
controversial. That's it. Yeah. So, but that was really important because we needed to get to a place also with Damien, didn't we, where we would catch it before it gets worse, because he was getting it, and then you have to give antibiotics and other things just to kind of help him to get out of that state. And sometimes you have to give steroids, and then that's a whole nother issue. And so it's really about prevention.
Right.
And then we added some herbs,
Yeah.
specific herbs. So really good herbs, safe herbs for the lungs that one can also take on an ongoing basis. I tell you a couple that everybody can use quite safely. So black cumin seed oil, which is the one that
Right.
we talked about, right? That was one. That's an interesting herb. I went to Egypt and I went to this herb shop. They have this amazing herb shop. It's like you go in and it's like this I don't know, just like this cave, and they've got all these different. And I was so curious because I'm doing herbal medicine. I said, "Can you give me your five most important herbs?" So he gave me four herbs, and then he said, "And this one, this is the most precious one of them all." And he brought it out and he was like, "This is the seed of the prophet. And it cures
Oh,
everything except death." That's it.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
And then I looked at it, I was really excited. I was like, oh, it's black human seeds. It was like really surprising. But then when you look into it and you look at the research, it's absolutely incredible. It's such a great herb. It's good for the lungs. It's good for the digestion. This is important, actually. Often the lungs and the digestive tract stem from the same embryonic tissue. So what you often find is that you have the herbs working on the gut and they work on the lungs at the same time. So you can sometimes help the lungs, calm down the lungs by working on the gut and vice versa. It's very interesting, yeah. So
Oh.
so this is, black cumin seed does exactly that. Yeah. So it does both. It works on both systems and it's really good for the immune system as well. And actually some interesting, if any, because there's a lot of ticks and Lyme disease in some areas. And actually they did some studies as well, where when people were ingesting black cumin seed on a regular basis, they had a lot fewer tick bites. It does not make you attractive to ticks. So that's always an
Oh, I
added.
live on Long Island. I am going to have to
Well,
remember.
there you go. Have it every day. And if you have pets as well, they can take it. And yeah, so it's a yeah, like he said, it's a cure almost. But it's very safe. So you could get it as a liquid. So if we're talking about babies, you could just add a little bit, like once they're weaning, once they start eating food a little bit, you could put a tiny bit into the food, one drop. Yeah. And so not very much. And then you can increase the dose as they get older. Yeah, so that's one thing. That's very safe. Okay, and everybody can use that. And then the other one is a herb called elecampane, Inula helenium, which is a wonderful herb. And that one Damien was taking as well. Right? And Inula is a beautiful herb. It's a massive herb as well. It's the Asteraceae family. So it looks like a big yellow daisy. It's huge. And we use the root. And the root is very interesting because it's a very aromatic plant. And it's got lots of volatile oils, which are really good for, again, for the gut and for the lungs. And in the old days, they used it for children when they weren't thriving properly. So it's interesting,
Oh.
you that sort of connection historically already, that you saw that. So that you could make a tea out of inula root. Again, dosage-wise for babies, you just need a few drops of a decoction. What is a decoction? Is you take the herbs, you put hot water over it, you boil it for a few minutes and then you leave it and then you just have a few of the drops. Yeah. So that's something that one could do. And it's a really good preventative
Ugh,
and it's a lung tonic.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the inula is great. We had Damien on inula, didn't we? He was on some other ones as well. But those are the key ones I think that you could, without even having to have a consultation with anyone. You could just, for anyone who's listening who just wants to try something, these are very safe and they're very easy to get. And so you could just start with that and then see, and maybe, I mean, often it's really helpful to get some help because you want to get a bit of feedback and insight if there's
Absolutely.
anything else. But we obviously with Damien, we did a bit more complex kind of prescriptions then in the end, and we gave him some other herbs as well, which are really specifically antispasmodic, which that was important. We could mention that perhaps because obviously the spasming is such a big problem.
Right.
Um, so the herbs. So the first thing is, as we mentioned earlier, is magnesium. You have to have proper levels of magnesium, and most children and adults, again, don't have it. So we need to make sure that we get enough of that. There's lots of different types of magnesium. You've got magnesium oxide, which is this cheap magnesium usually that you can get. That's a strong laxative. So I have patients who sometimes they use it because it just makes them go, right? But it's not that well absorbed. But it's the cheapest one that you can usually find. So that's probably not the best one. Then you've got magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate. That's a little bit better absorbed. It's a bit more gentle. It's not so much of a laxative. We've got magnesium citrate, which is also quite good in terms of bioavailability, but it's a bit more of a laxative. So if you do have a baby or a baby, we're talking about a child really now, a little bit
Yes.
older already, that is prone to constipation, often it is a magnesium deficiency, right? So that's really important. So if you give good levels of magnesium, then that will help. With magnesium, you can't really overdose and because you will get symptoms, so you will get very loose stools generally. So you can go up to the therapeutic dose. So you start with maybe 50 milligrams of magnesium, and then you can sort of work up and just observe and see what happens to the bowels. Yeah.
Right.
So when the bowels go loose, that's too much, and you bring it down again. Yeah.
Right.
So you start with a lower dose of bisglycinate. So then the other one we could use is also malate, which is good for energy. So if you have a child that's very lethargic and low in energy, magnesium malate might be a good one. And
Not
then
going to give that to Damien.
no, definitely not. Stick with the other one. And then if it's specifically the brain that we want to optimize, so then it's magnesium threonate. That's
Right.
the other magnesium, right? And that one is one of the few that they think really crosses the blood-brain barrier better. So that could also be a good one. So it's important, I think, to discuss the different types because otherwise you just don't know what to go for. Magnesium bisglycinate is a safe bet for most, but if you want to be a bit more specific, then you could use some of the other ones. And then also, if you don't want to give the magnesium internally because you're concerned, then get some magnesium cream and you can use it topically. And
Right.
that you can do quite early on, actually. Yeah, so you can use a little bit of magnesium cream, and you can get different amounts in terms of strength. And you can start with the lowest one and just again rubbing it on the feet, a little bit around the belly. Yeah, back again, around the hips. That's quite nice and it helps the spasm.
And
Yeah.
every child is so unique. So something that I really enjoyed working with you in this process is just having that session with you where I tell you what's going on. I also shared some of Damien's doctor's visits, a lot of his history, and then we really have a session where we kind of go through everything and all of the symptoms and what we're really looking to improve, and then you just kind of share all this information about diet and herbs and essential oils. And that's basically how the session goes. I found the process just very simple and empowering
Mm.
because I felt like I can go and get sweet potatoes. I can get some whatever it is, and then having my amazing sister here too for some of the essential oils and things like that, where maybe I didn't quite know where to find those.
Mm.
Um, it's just a very empowering process, I have to say.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think that's really the key because so often parents of children with special needs feel disempowered, that the only thing they can contribute to their child's progress is through a healthcare practitioner. And healthcare practitioners are amazing, when it comes to acute issues, but something like CP is a chronic condition that requires support. So, looking to support the whole person, the body physically, the mind and the body are connected. And through, many of these supportive therapies to enhance health, when the body is healthy, it's more difficult for those symptoms that are really causing a change in the quality of life to be calmed down and for true health to actually flourish. And I think that's what's so beautiful about holistic health.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's really nice, Jen, to hear that you found it empowering. That's really important to me always. I think it is, yeah, that's kind of what you're trying to do. Always try and give the parent a sense of exactly like you said, there's something I can do. I can be proactive. And yeah, it just makes a big difference, doesn't it, to how we then feel about the progress of everything. And yeah, yeah, it's really, really important. And so let's talk about diet because you've been talking about sweet potatoes a lot. Because diet is so important. So we talked about fiber, and fiber was massive for Damien as well, wasn't it? We really had to get some bit more fiber into him because why is fiber important? It feeds the gut microbiome. And also, when you think about detoxification, the detoxification pathways, so anything that we ingest, all the hormones, everything else that's going on in the body from external, from internal, the liver needs to detoxify it. And in order to then get it out of the system, it needs to be bound to fiber and then it's excreted, right? So
Mhm.
often we're not aware of that. So if we don't have enough fiber, what happens sometimes is that some of the compounds are reabsorbed into the system. So then you're processing it again. This is especially later on in life with hormones and so on, is that a big issue. And with all the pesticides and insecticides and everything else that we're having now, which are some of them are estrogen-like, we're getting a lot of problems because of that, the lack of fiber. So fiber binds it and then you can excrete it and it feeds the gut microbiome. So really key. So how do you do it? Because you have to start quite slowly and gently because otherwise if you suddenly hit them with lots of fiber, sometimes they can get quite bloated. Yeah. So you just start to introduce fiber slowly. So what we did with Damien, we did some nice we had him on, you know this better than I do. I should have looked it up exactly, but we did the sweet potatoes, right? We did, and
Yes.
we added a bit of lentils, we did, right?
Yes. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we did in the morning, he really wasn't wanting to eat anything too heavy. So you recommended porridge oats and then mixing quite a few things into the porridge oats to get those nutrients in. So you can even mix some of that sweet potato. Um, there was a lot of foods you recommended to reduce inflammation. Um, the list was so long that it was
The
just
longer comprehensive.
there was a lot of different flours that I didn't know of. There was teff flour,
Mhm.
which I could make pancakes into them and waffles into them and add um, different foods into those teff flour waffles or teff flour pancakes.
They
Um,
were good. He liked those, didn't he? He was
yes,
happy
he
with those.
did. Yeah.
That's half the battle often, is it? Because what I did suggest is to use non-gluten containing grains. So
Yes.
that's why we went that. Why? Because a lot of these children are often very sensitive to gluten. They might not be celiac, but because their gut microbiome and their gut flora is already impaired. And gluten basically depends on a really good gut bacteria to break it down. So if you don't have that, it will be negative for the digestive tract, and you get these sort of breaches in the gut junctions and so on, and you get a release. And it's very common, yeah, if you don't have a good gut microbiome, that you can't really process a lot of grains not that well. So that's why we went, okay, let's just take him off gluten. Let's use other flours because it's good to have some whole grains because you get a lot of B vitamins and lots of fiber and everything else. Yeah, so teff was a winner. And so that was a relief, wasn't it? And then we did we did stewed apples, didn't we, as well? We did stewed apples.
Yep.
Stewed apples is brilliant. Everybody can do stewed apples, and most kids like stewed apples, right? In one way or another, or puree. And then you can put in a little bit of whatever, cinnamon and some cardamom, whatever they like, And
Yes.
stewed apples is so great because you've got a lot of fiber in there, but it's a really good fiber that which feeds the gut microbiome. So it's a wonder food for the gut, really. So yeah. So that's kind of what we did, didn't we? We really increased the fiber. We looked at anti-inflammatory foods. So we took out the gluten, we took out the dairy, and we replaced it with we looked at the nutrient content of all the different foods. So we talked a lot about vitamin A is a very, very important
Yes.
nutrient, right? Do you remember?
Right. Hmm.
So what we did, so vitamin A comes in different forms. So you can have the active form, which is retinol, and then you've got the beta carotene. So beta carotenes you got in the sweet potatoes, right? Anything orange, lots
Yes.
of beta carotenes. And then we also talked about a little bit of liver, organic liver. Important to get organic liver. Don't get anything else because otherwise it's worse than it's better not to have it. Because obviously that's where the animals are processing everything. So you don't want to have an animal that was from a feedlot, which was fed lots of antibiotics and everything else. So it needs to be nice organic liver. And we said that maybe I think we had him on that once a week or so, didn't we?
Yes.
A little bit of liver. Yeah.
Also to give him the protein that he needed that he wasn't
Yeah.
getting.
That's right. That's
Yep.
right. Yeah. So that was the other really important thing. So good carbohydrates, good level of protein, and from different sources, not just from animal sources. So from plant sources and animal sources, and you mix it up. It's really important because then you get a different mixture of the different amino acids, which are uh, the kind of individual compounds in protein. Protein is made out of lots of amino acids, basically. So you have different types of amino acids. So yeah, that was really key. And that's really important. So you sort of try and you work a little bit with, okay, what do they like already? So we build on that because sometimes it can feel so daunting and frustrating. What am I going to give him? He doesn't
Right.
want this, he doesn't eat this, and so on. And actually, I find it really interesting when I work with parents because then I say, okay, well, tell me what they do eat. And then there comes this whole long list of things that they do actually eat. And I'm like, well, that's not so bad. So
Right.
sometimes, sometimes it seems worse for the parent as well. And then you go, okay, so if he eats this or that, then we can expand on this. And then you basically work with what they already like and have. So if they don't want a certain food, that's okay. Keep introducing it a little bit ever so often and just see if they add it. And that's, but eventually often they do. I think the more pressure, the worse it gets almost, doesn't it? And then you can sneak in, of course. I mean, bolognese is the best food because you can sneak in the most vegetables, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Put in your courgettes or your zucchinis, you call them, yeah, and your whatever else you want to put in, and lots of yeah, a little bit of onion and garlic, those kind of compounds which also are really important for detoxification. There's a lot of sulfur in these foods, and then yeah, you can blend it all in there, can't you? Yeah,
Becomes fun.
it does,
Yeah.
right? How many vegetables can I squeeze into this particular meal?
You gotta love a muffin. You can put a
Muffins,
lot of
yeah.
stuff into muffins.
Oh my God, you're so right. Because muffins are great because then you can put lots of linseed in and you can put some veggies in. Zucchini muffins are actually really good, aren't they? Yeah, yeah, definitely. So that's kind of it and be yeah, just really find out what they like and then often beetroot is quite good. They often like beetroot when it's a bit because it's sweet, and that's got lots of fiber. It's got a lot of, do you call it beetroot? Beet, isn't it? I think it's the
Beets,
same.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beet. Yeah. The red one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's quite a good one often that they like and you slice it. And the other thing I found that's really important when it comes to vegetables is actually how we present it and how we cut it. And I work with a lot of neurodiverse children. And for them, there's no negotiation. It needs to be presented exactly in the right way. And I've often found that with children. So, they won't eat peppers if you slice them, but they will eat pepper if you cut them into little cubes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So one can experiment with that too. So often, really often, they like it when they're in small kind of little bits, easy to digest almost. I'm not quite sure what it's about, but it's that's very important. There's something about the texture and something about the shape and something about
Sensory processing of the foods. Absolutely.
exactly
Yeah.
right. So just find the way, whatever the preference is, because it varies so much. But it's just something that I have seen that the little small cubes and salads with their little bits on there. And then the other thing that's really good when they're a little bit older as well is just to have like a buffet style. So
Yeah.
so you kind of have like almost like a Buddha bowl type thing, yeah. So you
Yeah.
put all the different ingredients out, and then everybody can take what they want, and and they can add it, and that's really nice, and it's also takes the pressure off a little bit. So that's
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's quite a nice thing. And it's creative and it's fun, and then you can think about, oh, what else could we put in our Buddha bowl, right? And it could be roasted seeds or toasted seeds. So one thing that's really important also for children in general, but especially with cerebral palsy as well, is zinc. So zinc is really key because zinc is so essential for healing and neurological processes and everything. So zinc is in meat. So with the liver and other things you can get that. And so, in a plant-based source is pumpkin seeds.
Mm.
So pumpkin seeds are great because you can dry roast the pumpkin seeds in the frying pan, so no oil. Just wait until they pop, and then you can get some tamari sauce and you just pour it over it, turn it off, and just mix them a little bit. And they make the most delicious snacks. And they generally, I have yet to find a child that doesn't like them because they're just really, umami flavor, crunchy. And that can be part of that whole, Buddha bowl or snack kind of contingent. So yeah, lots of little ideas like that where it becomes fun as well. It's like you said, Jen, right? It sort of became
Yeah.
fun to cook and to come up with ways of feeding him in a different way.
We are so grateful. I'm so grateful to have met you, for all the work that you've shared, the differences you've made for Damien. Um, and I'm so grateful for today. So
No, no, thank you.
thank you
Susie,
so
if a
much.
parent was looking to meet with someone like you, do you have any
Yeah,
recommendations? Because you're only one person, so you can't
yeah,
see everyone
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, 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 yeah.
What's the best route to finding a health coach, holistic
Yeah.
healer like yourself?
I would so yeah, I think I would look for someone who's done a lot of different disciplines. I think that's usually best. So I would try and find someone who's maybe started off as a herbalist and done a bit of functional medicine, or maybe they've done something else. Or yeah, health coaches who've worked in sort of slightly different areas, just to get a bit of guidance. Uh, Kind of see, have they done a bit of nutritional training? Do they know a bit about herbs? Do they know a bit about, so I think diversity is quite helpful. If you can't find that, generally, I think, yeah, you start working with one person, see how it goes. And then you can always expand and work with someone else, I guess, as well, isn't it? So you can just start with maybe someone specializes more on diet and you can do that. initially and then follow that and then you work with someone else. Sorry, that's a bit vague, isn't it? I'm realizing it's not that helpful, but I think it's just it's difficult. It's difficult to kind of say exactly what to look out for. Because I think for me, the functional medicine, I love it and it's brilliant, but it's sometimes it's almost too much, with the tests and the supplements and everything else. It can become very complicated, but I absolutely love it. So it's nice to have someone who does that, but who does not just do that, I think. A
Right.
bit like what you're doing, Marie, isn't it? You're a health coach now as well, aren't you?
Yes, I'm actually in the middle of a certification right now, but like you're saying, it's about finding someone who maybe has multiple
Yeah,
modalities because
yeah,
we are whole people. And
yeah,
so diet is a huge piece, stress is another piece, movement is another piece,
exactly.
energy modalities, if that's something that resonates with the family, is another piece.
Yes,
So
yes,
really trying to find who you resonate with. And then, one takeaway I have is that, you can many times ask for like a 10 or 15-minute discussion with the practitioner to see if you resonate. And if
yeah.
not, there are many people out there that do have the potential to help.
Yes, no, I think that's a really good point. Try and talk to them and see if you're resonating because sometimes it is also that, isn't it? The chemistry between you and that person needs to be right. And your philosophy as well. Some people will just check in with you because, for example, so I tend to be much more plant-based, and so if that's what you want, then there's no point talking to someone who has more of a keto approach. Yeah, so then you're better off. So you might want to check that because I often have patients who've come to me who were sort of told to do something that they didn't want to do ethically or philosophically or whatever. So maybe just if you have specific kind of viewpoints like that, then you can, yeah, you just check it beforehand. That's a really good point. And yeah, look for their qualifications and their experience that they have in that field, perhaps. And yeah, have a conversation with them for sure. Yeah, definitely. One last thing that's on my list, which I have to tell you because that is very important, because that's another one that everybody can use. We were talking about the physical oils and massage oils, and I was
Yes.
thinking about using olive oil, but actually, one thing that's even better than olive oil is St. John's wort oil.
Yes, we have used
Because
that.
we
Yes.
exactly we use that. I just saw it on my list because I thought, we've done some things that I thought everybody can use and quite safely. So St. John's wort oil is brilliant because it really helps for the nervous system regeneration. The only thing you have to be careful of if you put it on, don't go in the sun straight away afterwards because it can make one a bit more photosensitive. Yeah. Okay. So that was the last one on my list. Okay, I have to I have to fit that in. Okay, but thank you, you too. And I think it's so wonderful what you're doing. And also, Jen, this is also partly down to, I mean, this is huge, mostly down to you because you actually went out and did it all and got all the supplements. We didn't even talk about the supplements. We obviously used a lot of supplements as well, which are also really
Yes. We found
because
flower power, it's called, right? In
yeah,
New
exactly for
York.
our power in New York, which I remembered, which I absolutely adore. I've still got two mugs.
I love
From-
that you're in France and you were able to help me find.
yeah, yeah,
I took my sister there as well. Just
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. No,
Really.
wonderful. Yeah,
So I'm
definitely.
going to put all of the information about your website up just so that parents can find you. And I know that you know of other people as well that you can refer because I know you're getting packed and packed and packed.
But I'm happy to, if people want to send me a message and so on, then I will do my best. I don't always respond that quickly, so it can take a few days, as you know, you guys. But it's not because I don't care. It's just logistics sometimes.
So busy.
And there is a time gap between where you are and where we are.
Yes.
Exactly. So add that as well. That's right. Yeah. No, but it's wonderful. I think it's such a great resource. It's so wonderful what you guys are doing as well. I'm sure that people find it really helpful. Yeah. So nice, really nice that you're doing it. And
Thank you.
thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, we're so honored. I've been so excited.
Yeah, we've
So,
been trying for a while, haven't we?
yes.
Yeah, no, it's great.